thank the Minister of Finance for increasing the budget allocation to this office, particularly that resources will be used to recruit new staff. We need new staff to ensure that this country, all the institutions are audited accordingly. Madam Chairperson, just like others, I bemoan when we see flashing or screaming headlines year in, year out about revelations coming from the Office of the Auditor General. The expectations of the Zambians are that we need to follow up these revelations. Madam Chairperson, we have a government that is thriving to ensure that they utilize resources prudently to ensure that they reach all the sectors. We develop this country accordingly. But if we see resources being misapplied, misappropriated, it's a sorry story. So it is my hope that the increase in budgetary allocations, as stated on this vote, will enhance prudency and accountability. The increased CDF, a commendable thing, a legacy policy, taking the monies to the rural communities. Now, my expectations and the expectation of the people of Chasefo is that the Auditor General's office are going to be effective to ensure that those resources that have been given to these communities, these constituencies, are utilized according to the expectation of the government. And that these audits should not take more than 12 months. So the increase in the number of staff will ensure that we have speedy audits that are going to review misappropriations or any mismanagement of resources. Now, this CDF will only be appreciated if all the resources are used accordingly. Now, the Auditor General's office brings out issues. Now, these issues are recommended for prosecution. It will be history, it will be just ceremonial to have flashing headlines, and yet no action is taken thereafter. It is my expectation and my hope that this government or this house will come up with laws besides what the Auditor General's office brings out. We will make sure that those who are found wanting in misappropriation of resources are brought to book. And that is when we are going to appreciate all these increments, Madam Chairperson, we are giving the office of the Auditor General's office. Before I came to this parliament, there were flashing headlines. Nothing happens. It's business as usual. Today, we are lamenting everything. We are increasing the budget allocation. But what happens afterwards? The Zambians are expectant of us to ensure that we bring to a halt this business as usual of doing things and ensuring that these resources that have been given to all sectors in this economy are utilized properly. This country can do better if we can protect our resources. So it is my hope, Madam Chairperson, that what we have done through the Minister of Finance and through this government by increasing the allocations to monitor and audit all sectors, these monies will be protected and utilized for the benefit of this country so that this country can be a changed country starting with this parliament. I beg to move. Thank you. I support the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Mapani.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chairperson, for allowing me to add 2 or 3 sentences to this important topic or motion which is on the floor of this House. Madam Chairperson, it's very important, first of all, to understand what the Office of Auditor General is coming from. Madam Chairperson, the Office of Auditor General is a creation of this National Assembly. And this is an office which is enshrined in our Constitution under Article 250, and its fundamental role is to ensure that we audit. And to audit what, Madam Chairperson, is to audit the state organs, to audit the provincial administrations, to audit the local authorities, and to audit all those institutions who get their funding from public coffers. Madam Speaker, sorry, Madam Chairperson, the Office of the Auditor General is very important, and it brings out two fundamental issues. One of those, Madam Speaker, is accountability and transparency. Madam Speaker, when we talk about transparency, Madam Speaker, when we talk about ensuring that all those who get the fundings from the state or from public coffers ensures that all the monies that they get or they are funded, they have to put them to good use, and where all the citizens of this country can have the access to scrutinize whether indeed those funds were put to good use. Secondly, Madam Speaker, when talk of accountability, Madam Speaker, Madam Chairperson, it means all the coins, all the funds that have been allocated to these institutions are put to good use, and every coin counts. And this alone, Madam Speaker, will help to avoid misapplication of government funds. Madam Chairperson, it's very important also to indicate that the Office of the Auditor General faces a couple of challenges. Among other challenges, Madam Speaker, is failure to provide documents at the time of auditing. And this has been observed for a couple of years. This is because the institutions that are actually funded through government coffers are not ready to avail the documents to them, despite the notice that they are given by the Office of the Auditor General. In the normal circumstances, Madam Chairperson, before the Auditor General moves in any particular or any ministry or any organ that receives money from government coffers, they give them notices. But unfortunately, from the records, those notices are not respected. Because at the time of auditing, there's always a complaint that is always found in the Auditor General's report that documents that they request for them to actually execute their duties are not provided. The second issue, Madam Chairperson, is lack of legal efficacy. Madam Chairperson, the jurisdiction of this office is clearly stated and it's clear. But unfortunately, Madam Chairperson, the duties or the responsibility of the Auditor General only ends at recommendation. And this has caused a lot of problems in this country, where people who are assigned to manage the affairs of these institutions, they don't fear anymore. It's my suggestion through this House that, Madam Speaker, since this institution was an establishment or is an establishment of this House, this same House ought to sit and see whether indeed it's inevitable to give this body or this office powers to prosecute those who are found wanting. The other challenge, Madam Chairperson, is the issue of funding, which has not been given to these offices timely. If you look at the current Auditor General's report, Madam Chairperson, it's actually behind by 2 or 3 years. 3 years. And this alone is very difficult for the law enforcing agencies to actually execute or to enforce the law to those people who are found wanting. It's our hope that now that the budget has been increased, the timing of funding to this institution will be enhanced, so that those who will be found wanting and those who will be executing and enforcing the laws will be able to do that thing within the reasonable period. Madam Chairperson, I submit.
Thank you, Mr. Mwila.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, for according this opportunity to also contribute to this head. Madam Chairperson, let me start by saying that the operations of the Office of the Auditor General have been hampered greatly by lack of funding. And even this allocation that is being proposed now, 156 million, it is well supported, but I would rather it actually even doubled, because there's a lot of work. Obviously, the office understands how much work is required to be done. And with the current funding, Madam Chairperson, you will understand that sometimes even in the provinces, by the time they are hitting half of the year, they will have exhausted their allocation. And they just start waiting for any further funding. Sometimes they go without doing any more work. Coupled with that, Madam Chairperson, I want to refer to our Constitution, Article 249, which talks about decentralization of the Office of the Auditor General, which I would want to support very much. And I hope that the new recruits that have been mentioned, in the budget for next year will center more on the lower organs of the structure than the high positions, because the Constitution provides that the Office of the Director General shall decentralize to the provinces and progressively to the districts. And that requirement, now is needed now more than ever, because we have seen a lot of money that is going out there in the provinces. We have the CDF, we have a lot of grants going to the schools, and so the Auditor General's office needs to get closer and closer to where the activities are happening. So decentralization is one thing that must be taken into consideration, so that we don't just end at a province. Progressively, we need to start also establishing offices in the districts, so that we fulfill the provision in the Constitution, and also we are there at the grassroots where the activities needing the Auditor General's services are also happening. Madam Chairperson, let me also refer to Article 234 of the Constitution, which provides for the establishment of the State Audit Commission. The functions of the State Audit Commission is actually to supervise the operations of the Office of the Auditor General. The absence of this commission simply means that there is no one supervising. There is no effective supervision of this office. And in fact, Madam Chairperson, this restructuring that we are talking about, the creation of directorates, the additional staff, and how the operations will be done, would have better been done, first of all, by establishing this commission, which will scrutinize the proposed, layout, the proposed operations, and restructuring that is happening. Because for me, we feel like going straight, to do this restructuring, creation of positions without a commission that should be supervising, we may probably be, climbing the tree from the leaves rather than the trunk. So I would think that we give strong consideration to the establishment of this commission, so that the Office of the Auditor General is also audited, Madam Chairperson. Next, when we talk about the functions, Madam Chairperson, the functions of the Office of the Auditor General as set up in Article 250 are very clearly established. And I think I would agree with the previous speakers who have talked about the timely audits, because an audit is only valuable when it comes out on time. We need to look at the happenings in these spending institutions and the ministries on time, because it doesn't help for us to look at a report that is 2 years or 3 years, 3 years behind us. So to enhance the operations, we need these audits to be done on time. I would also want to, look at some of the reports, that we have been receiving from the Office of the Auditor General. There is an adage which says an auditor is a watchdog and not a bloodhound. What that means is that the auditor approaches their work with a questioning mind, not necessarily with a suspicious mind. But when we look at some of the reports and the sensational headlines that have been coming out of the reports from the Office of the Auditor General, they leave much to be desired. The country is now tired of sensational headlines like 33 million FTJ money paid for nothing, $40 million spent on Lusaka decongestion, ghost workers discovered. What else? What happens? In fact, Madam Chairperson, when you actually look at the details that are behind these headlines, they are totally contrary to what the screaming headlines show as presented by the Office of the Auditor General. So let's stick to what the mandate is. Of course, there is also provision. If they know that this thing is suspicious, this finding is suspicious, I don't think it's up to the Office of the Auditor General to come out and, create those sensational headlines. Let the Office of the Anti-Corruption Commission or the DEC deal with those issues. For the Auditor General, yes, you approach your work with a question in mind and not leave the country wondering as what happens next after those screaming headlines, that we read about. So, for the effective implementation of the functions of the Office of the Auditor General, I think we need to look at the approach starting from the Secretariat in Lusaka to the provinces and also down to the districts in order to ensure that we are on time, in order to ensure that, we are not missing the activities that are being carried out in the districts and in the provinces. And so, just to mention once again, I think that we need to give strong consideration to the establishment of the State Audit Commission, because all these things that we are talking about will ensure effective performance. After all, Madam Chairperson, even the auditor also needs to be audited. And in our case, the one to audit the auditor is the State Audit Commission. So please, let's put strong consideration to that so that we effectively see this office functioning. And as I conclude, Madam Chairperson, I think I would still urge the Minister to look through the budget if we can add more money to this office other than the 156 million that is being provided. Madam Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulebwa.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, for giving us, the people of Kaflafuta, the opportunity to submit our humble opinion on the motion on the floor. To start with, Madam Chairperson, the people of Kaflafuta are in absolute agreement with the budget presented to this House. And the people of Kaflafuta feel that the Office of the Auditor General is very, very cardinal to us as a nation, as without them, our nation would be subjected to a lot of financial abuse and other abuses that come under their discipline. The people of Kaflafuta are delighted to note that the Office of the Auditor General considers to employ more staff. I suppose this is this year and next year. However, the people of Kaflafuta note that we have no indication as to where this staff will operate from. In short, the people of Kaflafuta feel that the Office of the Auditor General need to have quality and adequate office accommodation, which is not reflected in this particular report. Otherwise, we completely agree with the budget, but as other speakers have indicated, the people of Kaflafuta feel that maybe we needed to give a bit more to the Auditor General. The only hope that and consolation the people of Kaflafuta have is that they have absolute faith in the Minister of Finance, and they adore him so much, and hoping that maybe these figures came from the Office of the Auditor General. But generally, we wish to put our emphasis on the fact that this office shouldn't be limping in its operations, be it transport-wise, the equipment that they need to use, and office accommodation. We feel that this office needs to be adequately financed. And as the people of Kaflafuta were looking at the salaries and wages, Yeah, the amount looks huge, maybe from an individual's perspective, but we suspect that when this is tabled to the office in its entirety, this may not be as handsome as it looks, and it's the opinion of the people of Kaflafuta that the office of the Auditor General needs to be well, rather the staff need to be well remunerated so that maybe we lessen bribes from the potential offenders, although we are quite alive to the fact that the corruption does not respect how much one gets, but we feel that this could help in a way if the staff from the Office of the Auditor General are well paid so that they can live up to the standard required of them. With these few words, Madam Chairperson, the people of Kaflafuta would like to submit our opinion as such. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Her Honor, the Vice President, wind up debate.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I would like to thank the honorable members that have debated this head on Auditor General. I think all of us listening, we do appreciate what has come out this afternoon. I think it has been a very kind of objective debate on this motion. And everybody is actually agreed, we do agree that there is need for more funding. I think this comes out literally from everybody that has debated. And it is not for luxury, is that I learn from all the debaters that there is need for effective functioning of the institution. And for them to do this, they need to be well funded. But they also note that in this budget, the Minister of Finance, government, has given them a little more than they have had before. And I can assure the August House that this is just the beginning, because we do realize that there is need to audit. And like the observation that has been made, we don't want audits that come 2 years or 3 years after the fact. There is need for timely debate, and as a commission, this is what we would like to do. You get the concern, for example, of the non-operationalization of the Act, and also the putting in place or establishing the commission. We do hear that, especially that for the commission, it is understood that this will be supervisory to the Auditor General. And the Act will bring better functioning of the Auditor General's office. We do hear that. We have taken note of those concerns. Like I said, they are very, very important and objective. The concern that comes out is a number of the debaters have brought out the issue that the work of the Auditor General becomes more academic if nothing is done to the offenders or to the people that are found to have misappropriated or misapplied. It is repeated year in, year out. They are saying there is need for more enforcement. In fact, it is noted that actually the Auditor General has the power to report some of these acts to the law enforcement. And I think it is important to also, this is what has come out, that there is need to enforce also the power of this House to be able to see that action is taken after they have gone through the report. In fact, it has been observed that the executive is not taking the recommendations from this House seriously. I think that this will be taken seriously because that's the purpose. It's not just going through reports and doing nothing. So we have to follow through the action taken reports. These are some of the concerns that have come through, agreeing that this Auditor General, empowered enough, as this government is trying to do, will bring in accountability. We will bring in, prudence expenditure or prudence management of resources. And we take note and appreciated that the Commission is expanding, and we intend to do that. This expansion is also working for decentralization. I think you do realize that the office is getting down. It's not just at the national headquarters. It is going down to the provinces, and the intention is to get right to the district so that the audit is not just for some. This is another concern that I learned, that certain institutions are not audited because of not having enough funds and also the manpower. Now, there is the issue of expanding the structure. This will help in covering the institutions that have to be audited. That includes the issue of CDF, which will also be audited, which will be all over the country. So let me just say, Madam Chairperson, I appreciate on behalf of the Commission that everybody is concerned and would want to see the Commission work well, bring out timely reports that don't have screaming sensational headlines. Probably this comes from their opinion that they should not be screaming. I don't know how the headlines will come out if they have found out that there was indeed a terrible abuse of public resources. We have to interest the people. I think the session headlines also help people to read and find out. If they keep quiet, nobody wants to even read what is going on. But that is important. They form an opinion, and it makes all of us read. I am sure the minister has been listening on these issues, and will continue to improve on the resources given to them so that they work to protect our resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Head 07, Office of the Auditor General, head total 156,129,395 kwacha. Any debate? Any objection? The question is that head 07, Office of the Auditor General, head total 156,129,395 stands part of the estimates. Mr. Kangombe.
Madam Chairperson, on page 72, budget summary. The total allocation is 156 million, out of which 139 is domestically financed and 17 million is from cooperating partners. Madam Chairperson, I want to find out who are these cooperating partners. I thank you.
Her Honor, the Vice President.
I think the question is a little difficult for me standing here. I don't think I prepared through the yellow book to see where the income is coming from, particularly for this issue. Okay.
Thank you. Any further debate? I put the question. The question is that head 07, Office of the Auditor General, head total 156,129,395 395 kwacha stands part of the estimates. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary say no. The ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. Head 07, Office of the Auditor General. Head total 156,129,395 kwacha is ordered to stand part of the estimates. We now move to head 08. Head 08, Cabinet Office, General Policy Debate. Her Honor the Vice President, Policy Statement.
Chairperson, I am honored to present the 2023 budget estimates for Head 08, Office of the President, Cabinet Office. Cabinet Office is the highest administrative organ in the public service. It is charged with the responsibility of securing the general efficiency and effectiveness of the public service. It is also responsible for monitoring and evaluating the overall performance of the public service for the efficient administration of government business. Cabinet Office derives its mandate and functions from Article 176 of Sub-Article 1 of the Constitution of Zambia, Amendment Act Number 2 of 2016. It operates directly under the Office of the President and comprises the following: A, Office of the Secretary to the Cabinet; B, Administration Division; C, Management Development Division; D, Policy Analysis and Coordination Division; and E, Gender Division. Cabinet Office is headed by the Secretary to the Cabinet and is assisted by 2 Deputy Secretaries to the Cabinet, one in charge of administration and the other responsible for finance and economic development. Each division is headed by a permanent secretary. Chairperson, in executing its mandate, Cabinet Office is guided by the following mission statement: to oversee and coordinate the government policy process, programs, and systems in order to secure the general efficiency and effectiveness of the public service. A, overview of 2022 operations. Chairperson, in 2022, a total of 250,690,855 kwacha was appropriated to Cabinet Office. Positive strategic results were realized by the office in line with its 3 key thematic areas outlined in the balanced scorecard. The major programs undertaken in 2022 include: A, successfully managed the conduct of all state and official functions; B, facilitated the conduct of cabinet meetings as well as cabinet committee meetings; C, facilitated the orientation of the newly appointed senior government officials and councillors; D, facilitated the operationalization of the Emoluments Commission and established the Emoluments Forecasting Framework for 2022 to 2027. E, coordinated performance management and development of service delivery charters in the public service. F, undertook the design, realignment, and review of organizational structures for government ministries and institutions. And G, undertook gender audits in 5 ministries, trained 17 line ministries in gender responsive planning and budgeting, conducted capacity building in the business skills for women, and community sensitization on cultural resetting to enhance gender equity and equality. B, 2023 budget estimates. In 2023, a total of 545,268,996 kwacha budget estimate is proposed for Cabinet Office. To attain its mandate, In line with the aspirations of the 8th National Development Plan, Cabinet Office will execute the following key programs. 1. Public service leadership. The program is aimed at improving the efficiency and effectiveness of the public service. The main outputs expected from this program include A. Leadership development, which will encompass orienting and capacitating senior government officials at various levels. B. Provision of administrative guidance to ministries, provinces, and spending agencies through issuance of Cabinet Office circulars. And C. Provision of policy guidance to executive and senior management through meetings. 2. Public service management, development, and coordination. The program is aimed at providing technical support to ministries, provinces, and spending agencies. It will, among others, facilitate the following. A. Design and implementation of strategic plans, organizational structures, systems, and work processes, as well as coordinating public service reforms. And B. Implementation of the decentralization policy. 3. State and presidential affairs. This program is aimed at enabling the presidency perform ceremonial, constitutional, and other national duties. The main operations will include A. Management of state functions, B. Management and coordination of presidential affairs, C. Management of the office of the former president, D. Management of the affairs of families to former presidents, and E. Providing logistical support for the affairs of freedom fighters. 4. Policy analysis and coordination. The program entails providing technical support to public agencies in the formulation of policies, as well as providing secretariat to cabinet and cabinet committees. The main operations will include A. Taking minutes and conveying cabinet decisions. B. Coordinating development and implementation of policies. C. Orienting newly appointed senior government officials. And D. Monitoring and evaluating the implementation of government policies and cabinet decisions. 5. Gender equity and equality. The program seeks to coordinate and monitor the implementation of the national gender policy to ensure gender responsiveness in national development. The focus for the program will be to A. Institutionalize gender mainstreaming, B. Eliminate gender-based violence, GBV, C. Revolutionize approaches to women empowerment by implementing sustainable, inclusive, and equitable climate-smart women empowerment programs that will border on job creation through agribusiness as an engine for empowerment. D. Enhance research on major drivers of GBV, teenage pregnancies, and early marriages. E. End teenage pregnancies and early marriages. And F. Capacity building women in life business skills. 6. Management and support services. This program entails the provision of human and financial resources, logistical and other support services to Cabinet Office. The main operations will include A. Provision of skilled and motivated human resource. B. Prudent management and utilization of financial resources. C. Management of air travel in the public service. D. Provision of a conducive and secure work environment. And E. Provision of a conducive environment for the engagement of the public and private sectors. Chairperson, Cabinet Office assumes a great responsibility of driving the government agenda of nation building through the provision of policy direction and systems that enhance service delivery to the citizenry. To enable the office effectively execute its mandate, I submit the 2023 budget estimates of expenditure for Cabinet Office to this august House for your support and approval. Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Ms. Katuta?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing the voice of Chiengi to contribute on this policy statement on cabinet. Madam Chair, following the policy statement given by her owner, I just want to talk about first the gender. I've been wondering why in Zambia women have been pushed just to the kitchen. If you look at the recruitments that are taking place, more men are being still recruited. If we look at even here where we are, we have more men and only 17 elected members of parliament, female members of parliament. Madam Chair, we're really having challenges in our nation. If we are going to continue.
Ms. Katuta, there are actually 21 elected female members of parliament, not 17.
Thank you for correcting me.
Okay.
Only 21, and the rest out of the 156, Madam Chair, they are males. That's why you see them, bringing tension in the country. So it's very important that the cabinet should, whenever there's a chance of employing, the cabinet should focus on mothers, women, because these men, what they've been doing in our country is something else. And I think they're bringing confusion, Madam Chair. Listen to the way they're talking even now. Madam Chair, they're troublesome. They're full of ego, Madam Chair. That's why we're having these tensions. Let me continue, Madam Chair, quickly to talk about the cabinet. Madam Chair, I want just to complain also on the issue of when there are state functions. This is my second term in Parliament. But we've been talking about this when there is a state function, the members of Parliament are nowhere on the list. Recently I attended, when I looked at the program, the MPs were not there. And this thing of having the mayors and whoever, and then the MPs, it's not giving us that honor as you are called honorables at state functions. Sometimes, Madam Chair, you see us shunning these state functions because we're not there. And we're told almost sometimes last minute, it's like it's a by the way, or after second thought, they're members of Parliament. It's when we receive invitations. I think the cabinet, this time around, please try to change things. We would like to attend these government functions as honorable members. But when we look at the program, you see they'll talk about the mayor, the PS, whoever. Then the MPs, they are not there. Even the DCs are there. So I think on this one, they should work on it, on a serious note. And I would also like just to talk about the issue of the budget. Madam Chair, I've seen the budget has gone up quite high. So I would like just also to ask the cabinet that whenever they are doing these budgets, the escalating or the escalation margin, I think is something that we'll talk about when we come to the items. Madam Chair, I'm still insisting, why is it that when they're employing in the defense, in the home affairs, they put more men than women? I'll insist, because this falls under her owner's, the vice chair's responsibility. We should change the narrative. This is the reason why we're seeing our girl child being vulnerable, So I think it's very, very important that this particular department takes things serious. They should, when they look at the adverts there, when they're dealing with these commissions, they should put in a word that they should make sure that more girl child should get employed. I think this is all I wanted to say, but I want to insist, please reduce the numbers on male folks. Thank you.
Is that man there? This man. Is he there?
a point of order.
There is a point of order. Mr. Mungandu, what is your point of order?
Speaker, Madam Speaker, I have a serious point of order. First one to Standing Orders number 65. Is the immediate Speaker, Member of Parliament, in order to accuse us as the ones who are bringing confusion in the country? She's saying male parliamentarians or male leaders are the ones that are bringing confusion in the country. Is that factual and verifiable, Madam Speaker? I need your serious ruling on this matter because the public is watching and they'll believe that male parliamentarians like the Honorable Jackie Mwimbu there seated and others, particularly the Honorable for Housing and Infrastructure, are the ones that are bringing confusion in this country. I seek your serious ruling.
Thank you, Mr. Mungandu. I think you've debated that point of order. We can move on. Mr. Kampyongo.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson, for allowing me to also make a few comments on this very important head which has been presented by our Honor the Vice President. Madam Chairperson, Cabinet Office should be viewed as the engine of any government. That's the engine of government. For government to function, for government to succeed, this very important head has to be up to the scratch. The requirement in the Constitution, Madam Speaker, and to our the Vice President, of appointing the constitutional office holder on whose shoulders this cabinet is anchored, who is the Secretary of the Cabinet, was basically to ensure that a person assuming that office is competent with the necessary experience in government, to understand the functions of government, procedures of government, and to make sure that all the portfolio functions assigned in different government institutions are supervised effectively. It wasn't meant to be a challenge. So we would like, through you, Your Honor the Vice President, to expedite the process through the appointing authority to have a substantive office holder of the office of the Secretary to the Cabinet. That's very important. This institution will be waiting for you to bring that to this August House as per requirement. And so the delay should not be ignored, Madam Speaker, because it has got, Madam Chairperson, it's got a bearing on the other functionalities of government. So we are requesting the government leader of government business to ensure that this issue is addressed. Cabinet meetings, which is very critical, because that's where all the policies to give policy directions on how government is going to take the country forward in terms of development, is also facilitated by cabinet, as you have alluded to, Madam Speaker. So you need to have a substantive office bearer who will be able to advise with a clear mind that they have settled. We have spoken about decentralization policy, Madam Speaker, Madam Chairperson. Again, this has been a policy, of course, which we can call work in progress for a long time. The challenges that we have encountered through the dispensation of the Constituency Development Fund, which has been increased, is because we want to take a piecemeal approach to this decentralization policy. If we take an holistic approach, it's well structured, and all what is needed is to ensure that matching resources are put in the decentralized structures of government at all the levels. Then this issue we have heard of saying the CDF is now being a challenge when it's supposed to be smooth sailing could have been avoided, because the answers lie in this very important policy and its implementation. They've done pilot programs which needs to just be followed through to ensure that the necessary resources are also channeled there. One of the key functions, Madam Speaker, Madam Chairperson, under this cabinet office is that of the former presidents. Unfortunately, we have lost most of our former presidents, and we are just remaining with one. And it's important that we look at this policy of looking after our former heads of state and their families, so that the challenges that could be encountered, especially for those whose who are families belonging to the late former presidents, so that they equally can be looked after well. I would talk about one issue on this matter. As much as we only recognize the issue of the former presidents, Madam Chairperson, we have changed the Constitution. And according to 2016 Constitution, the office of the Vice President has now changed from the way it used to be. Previously, it was just at the discretion of a sitting president to appoint a Vice President. But now, this office has been constitutionalized, meaning there's no much difference between the President and the Vice President. So as we are looking at the aspect of former presidents, we must not ignore that constitution provision which provides for the vice presidents. And this vice presidents now, which comes through the running mate, is basically just part of the presidency. And we must do everything possible to ensure that we realign the way we look at this office. It's no longer the same. And I know that our Honor the Vice President might not be able to speak to this because of the interest, but it's beyond the person that is in the office. We are talking about the office from now going to the future. And we can only look at the period from 2016 going forward, because that's when this was changed in the Constitution. It is very key. Madam Speaker, Madam Chairperson, the other matter I would like to just bring to attention of the Honor the Vice President is this thing of making cabinet office as a parking place for people that have been recalled from different government departments. This, Madam Speaker, must be avoided. We need to have a professional civil service. We are a democratic nation as it is. There was UNIP, MMD, PF, now UPND. There will be others to come. But we should have a civil service that should outlive the political cycles. The moment we say civil servants must be loyal to the government of the day, it simply means that every professional civil servant must understand that when the political parties change, they have a responsibility to be loyal to the party that comes in government. People that are recruited this time around should not be viewed as UPND cadres. No. Then we are not building the civil service that will save the nation beyond the political cycles. So let's stop packing productive, qualified personnel under cabinet office going to the future. Madam Chairperson, I submit.
Thank you, Mr. Msanje.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson, for allowing the people of Mbabara to comment on this head on the Bavara to comment on head 91. And they support the budget allocated 545 million, to which we support with the following comments.
Mr. Msanje, we are on head 08.
Oh, head 08, sorry. I'll need to amend my note, sorry. But I am supporting the head anyway. Head 08. No, I'm supporting cabinet office, head 08. So, Bakobuso, easy. Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson. Madam Chairperson, Cabinet Office indeed is the engine of any government, and it is therefore important that we get the best value out of Cabinet Office, as it houses a number of important functions for efficient running of each and every government that comes into office. And definitely, as a new dawn government, we look forward to a professional and efficient cabinet office that is oriented to the new dawn manifesto and the methodical way of doing things. Madam Speaker, Chairperson, we have in the past experienced glitches in some functions, and sometimes in the outline of activities. And I wish to speak to, for example, state functions. We need a clear protocol from Cabinet Office on how to address a number of attendees to these functions. And I also want to re-echo the issue of MPs recognition at various state functions and ensuring that the right protocol is followed to ensure that we are not lost in these things, and we give the right order. Madam Chairperson, I also want to add on the issue of the establishment of a Monuments Commission, which has been established, which we know that the previous regime was very scared of, and they failed to actualize. And I wish to commend the Cabinet Office for ensuring that it's now actualized. And this must be followed with clear issues around job analysis and evaluation for us to give the right value to every job that is going to be managed by the Monuments Commission. Madam Chairperson, I also want to commend the coming up with of a balanced scorecard at Cabinet Office, because that is a scientific way of modern management. And those are the things that we want to continue taking forward. Madam Chairperson, the issue of decentralization comes out as very important, especially as we heard in the last head, where the Office of the Auditor General is also decentralizing and adding capacity to the provinces and districts. And indeed, it will be good to marry this with what Cabinet Office is doing in this manner of decentralization. The issue of freedom fighters and the former presidents and the like is an issue of concern to me. We need to honor all, and I agree to also include the former vice presidents going forward. But I also want to point out, for example, in my constituency, we've got Senior Headman Lupata, who has been headman since 1948. And we brought this to the attention of Cabinet Office for him to be honored. And this has not happened. And he's a serious freedom fighter from Lupata. We also have another young man. I'm sure you all saw the Mbawara floods. We had a young man who rescued people from the waters who were almost drowning. And we submitted for honoring. He was not honored, Madam Chairperson. So these are the issues where we want to say, when we submit these names from the grassroots, let them be identified and be honored so that we can honor all, Madam Chairperson. Madam Chairperson, I also want to speak on issues of gender responsiveness that has been brought under Cabinet Office. and want to commend the office there and wish to indicate that this office needs to reorient the state institutions that are responsible for implementation of the anti-GBV policy and act, as well as the various pieces that support the elimination of early and teenage pregnancies and the like. State institutions such as the Zambia police will need to be reoriented to ensure that they are living the words and values of this country. I had a case recently where a young lady reported a GBV case and was told, no, you are reporting late. To me, Madam Chairperson, any breaking of the law does not need to be reported, does not need to be answered with the saying that you have reported late. As long as a law was broken, whatever time a person reports, it must be prosecuted and action must be taken by the state institutions. Therefore, it is important that these institutions understand the Anti-GBV Act, because it is clear that any act of harassment, abuse, or exploitation attracts criminal actions that needs to be taken on action. Madam Chairperson, the 8th National Development Plan is an important instrument to galvanize the development of this country. And indeed, it is important that the monitoring and evaluation function at Cabinet Office aligns itself to measure how we are doing in that area, together with the State House M&E team, to ensure that we get value and we get quality reports that inform the nation about all the beautiful and wonderful achievements that the new Dawn government is achieving. Every day, the new Dawn government is scoring. It's scoring big, it's scoring on employment, it's scoring on agriculture itself, and all the programs that are needed in this country. We are scoring every day, and people need to be informed. People need to be informed from a good M&E system and a good reporting system that reports to the public periodically, every quarter, every 6 months, annually. We need to see these reports so that the people can be told the right message. Madam Speaker, losing an election is very painful, and we can understand the cry from the left, Madam Chairperson, that they are crying because they lost elections by 2.8 million, Madam Chairperson. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Order, Mr. Msanje. I haven't heard Honor the Vice President talking about elections in a policy statement, and it's not even there under the head 08. So I wonder why you had to bring in the issue of elections. We just had the head 05, Electoral Commission of Zambia.
Painful on their side.
Mr. Msanje, it's best that you withdraw the statement, because I cannot see the people that are crying. And the issue of including the by-elections, just withdraw that so that we move forward.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I withdraw the word crying with and replace it with mourning.
Mr. Msanje, in fact, I said, can you withdraw that statement about by-elections, because it has brought noise in the House. We cannot progress.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I withdraw the words.
Thank you. Ms. Nyerenda.
Thank you, Madam Madam Chair, for giving this chance to the people of Lundazi to just add their voice to this head under debate. I would want to firstly state that I'm in support of this head, especially that it is housing the gender department, where we women need serious representation. Madam Speaker, most of the times women are very shy to talk about their benefits, and this has always made them to remain behind. This time, Madam Speaker, I want to appreciate that indeed there is money which has been allocated in this budget for women empowerment. 2021, there was nothing. 2022, there was nothing. And 2023, there is 15 million. At this, I just want to appreciate that now we are focusing where the challenges are. Madam Speaker, on the issue of gender mainstreaming, we have moved from 1,576,000 to 2,116,000. I bemoan this figure, Madam Speaker, because I know what it takes to have a gender focal point in every place. The reason why we are having so many challenges in Zambia today is because we have neglected the 52% of the population. As long as we continue giving small notches to women programs, we should not expect to have a fruitful nation as Zambia is supposed to be. Madam Speaker, gender rights protection. The money has moved from 6,502,492 to 29,746,759. Madam Speaker, I took time. I'm not an economist, I'm not an accountant, but just looking at this figure, it really shows that here we are now getting serious in the protection of gender rights protection. Madam Speaker, we have suffered enough. Just when I was coming, I read a report of where a man has been inserting a cooking stick in the female's something. And now it has ended up in the woman being in hospital right now, and they have to operate because the baby has died. Madam Speaker, such things, they can make you cry, but they are happening here in our country. Just not too long, Madam Speaker, we had the issue of our 13 abducted girls. And Madam Speaker, as long as women's rights are not given the priority, we are going to continue having such challenges. When I looked at the total budget, Madam Speaker, it only amounts to about 11% of what Cabinet is going to get. Already, we do not have a ministry of our own. I'm not bemoaning that. However, I'm saying, why don't we allocate resources enough so that we can be able to deal with some of the challenges which the women are facing today? Madam Speaker, as my sister was trying to speak, to say, yes, indeed, we are suffering at the hands of the people whom we trust our love with, it is very sad that indeed our men folk have not been very fair to us. Madam Speaker, the rights of children, they fall under the gender department. They may fall somewhere under the youth. But this idea of looking for allocation, whether it is in the gender department or maybe we go, I've looked at Western Province, the head itself, and I assessed the Eastern Province head. There is no provision for women. What is just allocated there is the youth and then the children. Madam Speaker, as a nation, we need to take issues of women seriously. If we are just going to take it as by the way, we are going to have serious offices being given to us as tokens, such as the office of the Vice President, which will not come with anything when she retires. Madam Speaker, it is important that we start fighting for our own rights on the floor of the House. I know it may not be good to speak about ourselves, but I'm talking about the office, Madam Speaker.
Madam, we are not allowed to debate ourselves. So it was not good for you to talk about Her Honor the Vice President, who is seated comfortably listening to your debate. Maybe you can withdraw that and phrase it nicely.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I withdraw. It was the office I was talking about. I'm really sorry, Madam. And you know that Lundazi is always very objective. Madam Speaker, what I just want to say is a little will go a long way. Where we have started from, let us increase. Women are more in this nation, and we just have to make sure that we attach much resources to them. Let me turn to my constituency, where there are a lot of women. And this empowerment, Madam Speaker, you'll find that most of these cooperatives are headed by men. And when the money is gotten, Madam Speaker, they may need to go as they are doing women empowerment, because they need to give them information so that when they receive the resources from the cooperative, they should be able to know how to use the money. Sometimes what is making our women to lag behind is due to lack of information. I'm talking about financial information. Sometimes you find that financial literacies in rural areas, they are very low. And you find that most of the times, the men are the ones who are getting these monies, and women are left just wallowing in poverty. And in the end, if a woman is not empowered like myself, who can know what is wrong and what is right, they will not be able to defend their rights. Madam Speaker, with very few remarks, I would want to support this head and say, let us do more next time. I submit.
Mr. Chibuye.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Madam Chairperson, let me just straight away zero in on two issues that have been alluded to from the policy statement from our Honor, the Vice President. Madam Chairperson, I want to zero in on the issue of freedom fighters. Last week, or the other, Madam Speaker, Madam Chairperson, Zambia was celebrating its 58th independence celebrations, and much was talked about, and we'll keep on talking about our freedom fighters. Your Honor, the Vice President, it amazes me that up to today, we have some institutions, even streets, that are named after our colonial masters, and yet we are talking about our freedom fighters. When are we going to honor our freedom fighters? I believe these people can only be honored whilst they are still living. Your Honor, the Vice President, why should we have a name of a colonial master standing today as a street of our roads? And yet we have people who fought, people who are in the forefront in the Cha-Cha-Cha formula, throwing stones, who are still living, and we don't recognize and honor them. I believe as Cabinet Office, this is the time that we should take inventory and honor such people, including people like, though we are not allowed to debate ourselves, Musokotwane, we can honor the minister. We can honor Musokotwane Len. We can honor Honorable Charles Milupi. These are people who are still living, who fought for this independence. They threw the stone. Why are we in Luansha have got people who are freedom fighters who are still languishing? They don't even have a plot where they can build a house. And we call them freedom fighters. And yet when they die, that is when we rush.
Order, Mr. Chibuye. Please let us avoid mentioning names, because that is now debating ourselves. We are bringing ourselves in your debate. Let's avoid bringing names of people who are here. You can continue, Mr. Chibuye.
Much guided, Madam Speaker, Madam Chairperson. The point I'm trying to drive is that we have enough freedom fighters who are still living with us today, and we need to look at them and honor them. We have a lot of freedom fighters, even in my constituency, who are languishing, who doesn't have even where to sleep, who doesn't have even where to, what to eat tomorrow. We need to honor them while they're still alive. So, this head, Madam Speaker, I wanted to look critically at the issue of freedom fighters. Yes, we have freedom fighters that we have honored, like the late KK. We have freedom fighters that we have honored, the late Michael Sata, with this new infrastructure that are coming. But we still need to do more. To look around, let us take inventory of all the freedom fighters that are living today, so that we can honor them while they are still living. Madam Chairperson, I also want to zero in on the issue of pregnancies, which was alluded to in the policy statement. It is amazing and saddening at the same time, Madam Chairperson. Just last week, there were screaming headlines, as it was said, where in Quito at one of the workshops, it was revealed that close to over 1,200 teenage girls fell pregnant within the quarter from January to September this year. This is a very big number, Madam Chairperson, and something needs to be done. And the majority of these girls are 14 to 18 years. What are we doing to our nation? We are destroying the future fruits. We are destroying the future leaders. And something needs to be taken and a deliberate policy put in place to ensure that whoever is involved in doing this, in destroying these fruits, must be answerable. Not only that, Madam Chairperson, the same last week, another screaming headline where over 600 teenage girls again underwent and self-abortions. What are we doing as a nation? We need, this might appear to be a very small number, and we are only talking about Kitwe. What about countrywide? It is something that should worry every one of us. And I only hope that Cabinet will take this seriously to ensure that we safeguard and protect our children. I am a father of very, very small children, and I'm worried if we are going to allow such happenings to happen to our daughters. Not only that, we may pretend that everything is well within our urban areas. Madam Chairperson, if you go into the rural areas of this country, you will shed a tear where a child is carrying another child on the back. A child as young as 14 is a mother. When did this child learn how to be a mother? When did this child learn how to take care of the house, take care of the husband? This is very painful, and I can only hope that, knowing that Cabinet Office is there, you need to take keen interest and ensure that we start doing monitoring and evaluation in these areas to ensure that we bring this to a stop. Otherwise, we'll be pretending, and we'll be pretending to be burying our heads in the sand, and things are not moving on well. It is a time bomb, Your Honor, the Vice President, which we are sitting on in terms of child pregnancies. That is why 13 girls can be taken by 2 boys. What is that? 2 against 18. It's unheard of, and it's uncalled for. So we need to be serious with such issues, because it is only the life of our children that we're interested in, and these are the children that are going to take the mantles from us tomorrow to lead this nation to greater heights. Madam Chairpersons, I also want to say I support this head under Cabinet Office, and I only hope that Honorable Minister of Finance did a very good homework to come up with this figure of 545 million to this head, because I know it is taking care of so many branches that falls under Cabinet Office. Madam Chairperson, with these few remarks, I thank you very much for allowing me and giving me time to contribute on this aid.
We are going to have the last member, Mr. Kangombe.
Madam Chairperson, I'm grateful for the opportunity to make a few comments on this very important head Cabinet Office. And even as I make these comments, Madam Chairperson, I want to borrow the words that have already been delivered by the previous speakers as mine, but I want to place emphasis on one very important aspect, the issue pertaining to who must head Cabinet Office. Madam Chairperson, under the Office of the Secretary to Cabinet, as already indicated earlier on, by now we should have someone who must be substantive. By now we should have someone who should be able to discharge their duties, knowing very well that they are permanently employed on behalf of the people of Zambia. Last year in October, the current acting Secretary to Cabinet was appointed to act. Madam Chairperson, it's been over a year since that appointment was made, and he's still acting. I'm also aware that in public service and by practice, when you act for a certain period of time, it means that your supervisor has either assessed your competences or your supervisor has been able to feel that you should not be able to continue discharging your duties. Madam Chairperson, I'm not discussing any individual, but I'm discussing the office. And currently, that office still has an acting person. It will be necessary, therefore, Madam Chairperson, that each one of us places ourselves in the shoes of the person that is acting, whether there is need to continue acting in that position, so that the instructions that come from government, because literally, Cabinet Office is supposed to implement the instructions that come from Cabinet. When Cabinet meets on Monday, the ministers and His Excellency the President will come up with instructions that should go to Cabinet Office. Now, if you have someone acting for over a year, Madam Chairperson, it raises very serious concerns. Today we are going to approve the money that has been requested, 545 million kwacha. But who's going to oversee this very huge expenditure? We definitely need to agree that government needs to immediately employ a very permanent officer in that position. If the current office bearer has risen to the occasion, I think it's important that he is confirmed so that the duties that have been assigned to this person can be discharged accordingly. It will be necessary, even as the Vice President takes note of these very important observations. I know she may not be in a position to comment in detail, but I think government needs to respond to this challenge, that we need a permanent person to start discharging the duties of the Office of Secretary to Cabinet. Secondly, Madam Chairperson, and I'm happy that the Member of Parliament for Ron has touched on the issue of freedom fighters. There will be a stage in our lifetime that we will no longer have freedom fighters. Because if you count 1964 to where we are now, very soon we will have no freedom fighters. What will remain with are memories of people that fought for our independence, but what legacy are we leaving? What appreciation are we extending to these men and women that secured our independence? I was looking at the allocation that has been given to freedom fighters. Madam Chairperson, it is shocking that we've only put 1.2 million kwacha. The amount that has been allocated, Madam Chairperson, is inadequate. I know in most cases when we debate the way I'm debating, issues are just noted, but they are not factored in. I think that it is important that when people are speaking on this floor of the House, if something has to be factored in before approval, I think it's important that government makes a commitment that really 1.2 million is not enough. We have 116 districts in Zambia. If we ask each of these members of parliament, Mufumbwe district, if we ask the member of parliament for Pemba, that give us the freedom fighters that have saved this country, Madam Chairperson, there will be a long list. I don't think 1.2 million kwacha is adequate for us to do anything that will show that we are appreciating the work that our freedom fighters have been able to do. Lastly, Madam Chairperson, under the Office of Cabinet Office, we have an allocation of 500,000 kwacha, which has been allocated towards an institution called National Institute for Public Administration. Madam Chairperson, it is shocking that we are allocating 500,000 kwacha to an institution that is supposed to help us prepare civil servants for public service. In the old days, and why the first government came up with the model of NIPA, was that when you graduate, whether it's from university, whether you leave any institution and you are ready to work in government, the old practice, Madam Chairperson, was that, first of all, you had to go through NIPA. NIPA had to prepare you for public service, explain to you the challenges of public service, explain the thinking of government, orient you on things that have to be done. And I'm sure those that are here that went through that program will agree that NIPA was a model institution. But to look at the yellow book today and only find 500,000 kwacha, not even 1 million kwacha, Madam Chairperson, it is shocking. And I want to appeal to the Minister of Finance that if it would not be possible for us to put money today, it will be necessary that we do a supplementary budget specifically for the National Institute of Public Administration. This is a very important institution. The MP for Ron is emphasizing that another supplementary budget for the freedom fighters. I think we've already laid these suggestions to you, but I'm emphasizing on the issue of NIPA. NIPA is supposed to help us prepare public servants for public service. And it is important that we push in more money, we modernize infrastructure, we modernize the training, and we ensure that the curriculum is relevant to what has to be achieved. Madam Chairperson, those are my few thoughts, and I hope that Her Honor the Vice President has taken note. I thank you.
Thank you. Her Honor the Vice President, wind up debate.
Madam Chairperson, I stand and confirm or assure the House that we are taking note of the concerns that are being raised on the floor of the House. We may not be able to change figures right now, but the figures also come according to the performance of our own economy and indeed the priorities that come with it. Maybe starting with the last point before it escapes my mind, the issue of NIPA. NIPA is no longer a full government institution. It is an autonomous institution. It's basically a private institution. That's why now to go to NIPA, you need to pay. That is what it is. It is not like the way it was in the past. I just thought we could say to that, so that the honorable member thinking that we should give a little more may be settled. Madam Chairperson, I hear a lot has been said here, particularly on the gender issues. I've heard both men and women of this members of this August House debate the issue of gender, and they put a lot of importance to that. I think it is important for members of this August House to see that through the speech that I gave at the beginning.
Honor the Vice President, as the time is 16:40 hours, I suspend business for 20 minutes for a healthy break.
Good afternoon. You're tuned into Parliament Television. Business has been suspended up to 17 hours, and the House is currently debating Head 8, which is the Cabinet Office of the President. Some members of Parliament have actually added their voice to this particular head, and just before the break on the floor of the House, Honor the Vice President winding up debate for this particular head, that's Head 8, Cabinet Office of the President.
And earlier on, the House did consider Head 07, and this is the Office of the Auditor General, and the total amounting to 156 million to 129,395 has been ordered to stand as part of the business. And earlier on, the House did consider a question for all answers. So when business resumes, the House is still considering some committee work. For now, we take a short break, and we'll be back just to give you on issues that have been discussed on the floor of the House earlier on. The Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2022, and the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 25 of 2022, were presented for the first reading in Parliament on Friday, 22nd October 2022, and were consequently referred to the Committee on Legal Affairs, Human Rights and Governance. The main object of the bills is to replace the penalty of death with life imprisonment and repeal the penalty of defamation of the President. In view of the fact that the proposed amendments generate matters of public interest, members of the public, civil society organizations, and faith-based organizations are being invited to give written and oral submissions on the bills to the committee, which is scheduled to sit from 14th to 23rd November 2022 at Parliament buildings. For further details, please contact the National Assembly of Zambia on 0211 292425 236 or email info@parliament.gov.zm.
Visits to constituency offices by presiding officers aimed at familiarizing themselves with operations of the offices have continued. The Honorable Second Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, Honorable Moses Moyo, MP, accompanied by some members of staff, visited Munali Parliamentary Constituency Office situated in Starido area off Great East Road. On arrival, the Honorable Second Deputy Speaker was met by Area Member of Parliament, who is also Minister of Water Development and Sanitation, Honorable Mike Imposha, MP. The Honorable Second Deputy Speaker then informed the Area Member of Parliament and his staff the purpose of the visit to the office.
Our purpose of coming to this constituency office, number one, is to appreciate your challenges and also to appreciate how you've managed to overcome them, and also to share what is there in stock for you, the reforms that we've embarked on, the stage at which we are. As you may be all aware, this office was established mainly as interactive stadia for the public and the Member of Parliament. It's a stadia that was made so that we make Parliament closer to the people. I think this is one of the key reforms that National Assembly made to be closer to the people. Other than that, there was an establishment of radio and television to the youths, those ones that are able to interact through social media. A platform was created, a Facebook page, and that also provides that when proceedings are on, the public can easily access and follow what is happening in the house, even if they're not at home, to follow them through TV. Other than that, those of you that have been here before longer enough, you know that you've been involved in the development of the strategic plan. But going forward, I think you'll be much more involved, because as the National Assembly, our dream is that we should align the strategic plan with the National Development Plan, so that the two move in tandem.
Then Area Member of Parliament made some brief remarks about his constituency, the office and its operations.
I must say that we are very delighted to receive your delegation this morning. Since I took over office in August 2021, I think this is the first delegation from Parliament to visit us, so we are very delighted to receive you. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the constituency you are visiting today has a population of around 600,000 people, and this constituency is comprised of 6 wards, namely Chakonkola, Chainda, Mtendere, Kalikiliki, Kalingalinga, Munali ward. Kalikiliki is one of our young wards, if I'm to put it that way. We initially had 5 wards, so the wards were increased to 6 with the coming of Kalikiliki on board. Mr. Speaker, we want to thank you. We want to thank National Assembly through you for the reforms which have been taking place, which also brought about the creation of the parliamentary office, which you are visiting today. I think in the past it was very difficult for members of parliament to do their business, to meet the residents, to also disseminate information to the electorates. But we are privileged that since the setting up of the parliamentary offices, it has been very easy for members of parliament to function, because this office has members of staff where even if I'm not here physically, but the work is still taking place. The people still come here, the electorates, the residents of Munali still come here and be attended to. So we're very grateful that Parliament accorded us this opportunity to have offices, to also have members of staff who are able to service us members of Parliament. I must say that these offices have been very, very helpful. In fact, most of the works right now we have been busy with the CDF issues, and most of these meetings and activities are taking place right here. So people come here in and out to get information in terms of how they can benefit from various components of the constituency development funds, including the youth empowerment, women empowerments, the grants, the loans. So this office has been extremely busy to disseminate this information, and indeed other developmental issues within Munali constituency.
Then issues and concerns of administrative nature were then shared and exchanged between constituency office staff and staff in the Honorable Second Deputy Speaker's delegation. After the administrative interactions, the Honorable Second Deputy Speaker then toured the office in order to appreciate the working environment. The visit concluded with a tree planting exercise in line with the 144th Interparliamentary Union IPU Assembly Bali Resolution on Climate Change under the theme Making Parliaments Green. Both the area member of parliament and the Honorable Second Deputy Speaker planted a tree each and made the following remarks respectively.
You know that we are now hit very badly by the effects of climate change, and the only way we can repair the environment is by ensuring that we plant more trees. So no action is too little. We want to call upon the residents of Munali and the citizens to ensure that given an opportunity, let them go out and plant more trees. You know, by planting 1, 2, 3, 5 trees, you are actually helping to repair the environment which has been damaged over the years by the the cutting of trees, the over deforestation. So we want to appeal to the citizens out there to plant the trees, and by planting trees, one, you are helping to keep the environment green, to ensure that we also protect the land to avoid soil erosion. I'll tell you that in the water sector, for example, one of the challenges that we have is that when so many trees are cut along the banks of the rivers, you find that when it rains, most of the soil is swept into the rivers, and that tends to create high turbidity in the water, and then you begin to see brown water, which becomes very expensive to treat, because then we have to apply more chemicals. So if the citizens can plant more and more trees along the banks of the rivers, around the environment where they are found, then we are going to protect the waters from being contaminated by the effects of soil erosion. Secondly, we are going to repair the environment by ensuring that we get back to the normal rainfall which we used to receive. Right now, we have all these challenges of extreme effects of climate change because of the trees that have been cut. Sometimes you have droughts, sometimes you have floods, and this can be controlled if all of us respond to the call to plant trees. And I'm happy that as members of parliament we've been challenged to ensure that we plant about 1,000 trees, and we want to assure Madam Speaker through the Second Deputy Speaker who is here with us that we shall take up this challenge to ensure that we plant 1,000 or more than 1,000 trees in Munali constituency.
Trees play a very important role, be it deciduous or non-deciduous, those that shed leaves when it's hot like this, or those that are non-deciduous that shed leaves throughout the year, they restore fertility in the soil. That is one important point. Secondly, also to issues with rainfall. You know, trees play a quite pivotal role to ensure that the world is green. And the National Assembly of Zambia wants to be a pioneer in that regard to ensure that Zambia becomes green, Zambia becomes safe, Zambia becomes food secure. Because, you know, with this environment that has been compromised now, this tree planting exercise has to be an ongoing. As National Assembly, we ensure that this exercise is taken even to constituencies. MPs in their respective constituencies should be able to dedicate time and a day or two in every year that comes thereafter to ensure that it becomes an annual event, a planting exercise, so that we are able to show consent in that regard.
The Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2022, and the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 25 of 2022, were presented for the first reading in Parliament on Friday, 22nd October 2022, and were consequently referred to the Committee on Legal Affairs, Human Rights and Governance. The main object of the bills is to replace the penalty of death with life imprisonment and repeal the penalty of defamation of the President. In view of the fact that the proposed amendments generate matters of public interest, members of the public, civil society organizations, and faith-based organizations are being invited to give written and oral submissions on the bills to the committee, which is scheduled to sit from 14th to 23rd November 2022 at Parliament buildings. For further details, please contact the National Assembly of Zambia on 0211 292425 to 36 or email info@parliament.gov.zm. Well, thank you so much for still being with us on Parliament Television. Business is still on the 20 minutes healthy break, and shortly business resumes. At the time business was suspended, the House was considering Head 08, Cabinet Office, Office of the President, and the Vice President was just winding up debate.
And the House has so far considered Head 7, that's the Office of the Auditor General, and the total amount that has been allocated to this particular head is 156,129,395 kwacha. Other heads that are up for consideration include Head 01, that's Office of the President, State House, Head 02, Office of the Vice President, and lastly for today, Head 19, Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit.
Earlier on, the House did consider the Investment, Trade and Business Development Bill, National Assembly Bill number 20 of 2022, which came up at report stage, and report stage has passed, and the report has been adopted, and third reading to be considered tomorrow, Friday, 4th November 2022.
The other bill that was considered at its fourth stage is the Investment, Trade and Business Development Bill, National Assembly Bill number 20 of 2022, which has passed the report stage, and the third reading of the bill will be undertaken tomorrow, Friday, 4th November 2022.
We also had the Zambia Development Agency Bill, which came at that's the National Bill number 19 of 2022, which came at committee stage, and report was adopted with amendments, and report stage to be considered tomorrow as well on the 4th of November 2022.
So in case you've just tuned in, the House has resolved into Committee of Supply to consider estimates of revenue and expenditure, including capital and constitutional and statutory expenditure, and is currently looking at Head 08, that's a Cabinet Office, Office of the President. Earlier on, we did see on the Vice President given a policy statement regarding this particular head, and members of Parliament that indicated to speak actually did debate this head. And just before the break, one of the Vice President was winding up debate for Head 8, that's Cabinet Office, Office of the President.
Still to come is Head 01, Office of the President, State House, Head 02, Office of the Vice President, Head 19, Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit, and earlier on the House did consider the only question for oral answer, Understanding Order 74, and this is question 85. We'll be able to give you the details of the responses that the Minister of Mines and Minerals Development gave to the Member of Parliament, Fortune Sali, who wanted to find out whether the government is aware that the Zambia Consolidated Copper Mines Investment Holdings was on Tuesday, 4th October 2022, sanctioned by Euronext Paris. For now, we cross over to the floor of the House.